Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Silver Sands webinar. So my name is Colin Gray, and I'm joined this morning by Ben Haynes, who's one of our lead consultants, who will take you through our session today on what's new in the Power Platform. This has got lots of updates from the announcements at Ignite last week, so hopefully you'll find it very useful. Just before Ben goes into the detail, for those of you who haven't been to a Silver Sands webinar before, I'm just going to go off with a quick introduction to Silver Sands in a slide. So, okay, so that's okay. So Silver Sands, we've been in business for around 35 years now. We're a professional services organization specializing in Microsoft technologies around hybrid cloud IT. So in the slide on your screen, you can see the main areas that we focus on. So at the top, in the large circle, with Microsoft 365, and in here we've got three key components. We've got Office 365, so that's your Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, etc. So in this area, consultants work closely with clients to help understand how to architect, to manage, and how to drive improved adoption. As Microsoft keeps doing updates to the platform, it's important to keep up with those. Second component in here is Windows 10, where we encourage clients to take full advantage of the latest enterprise desktop enhancements, and that'll help you standardize and improve the end user experience and remote access for all your users. Third point in that bubble is enterprise mobility and security, and that's a really useful tool which gives you many benefits to allow improved deployment, management, and security for all your devices with solutions like Intune and Azure AD. And that helps you keep devices secure and up to date. Then moving down to the large circle bottom left, we have Power Platform, and that's our focus for today. So you've got obviously Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and solutions like that in this area. I think it's fair to say they're really now starting to transform how organizations enable digital services now that home working's become the norm. Moving across, bottom right is Azure. In this area, our consultants and development teams will work with clients to migrate, integrate your on-premise solutions with Azure. And the teams in this area will also provide advice and guidance on how organizations can start to deliver enhanced business functions and analysis services within Azure as part of any cloud-first application strategy. So a lot of organizations starting to see a lot of benefit from looking at that area, and it's driving better overall customer experiences, helping with business growth, and making your IT teams more efficient. Around the edges, obviously, then we've got smaller circles showing identity management, governance, security, and our guys will all help you make sure that's part of any joined up delivery. And finally, in the center of the graphic is people and devices, which should really be the focus of any business change program in this modern day, but often isn't the case. Too many projects are still focusing on technical aspects of a change program rather than how best to implement whatever your organization's strategic goals are and ensure the workforce has the right digital skill sets to do the job functions. So very important that we put users at the center of the whole story. And it's not mentioned in the graphic, but underpinning all these consultancy areas, we have our support offerings, which give you both managed and ad hoc support services, covering everything we've just mentioned. So that's Silver Sands in a slide. So thank you for bearing with me there. And I'll now hand across to Ben to begin the webinar. Over to you, Ben.
Good morning, everybody. Before I begin, I just need to apologise for a few things. The first one is today they're outside, they've started to do roadworks, so if you hear a pneumatic drill in the background, they've picked the perfect time for it to begin, so you may hear that in the background. And also my chair, I never thought I was going to be using it this much from working from home, so it's quite squeaky, so you may hear that as well. So I apologise for those two sound effects before we go any further. Okay, So today we're going to talk about the Microsoft Power Platform and the updates that Microsoft have announced at Ignite last week. One of the things I'm also going to talk about are things that they've spoken about in the last 6 months as well. So this time around, rather than having the one conference that they normally have in September, they've had split it across two. So there was an Ignite in September and there's been an Ignite last week. They've made some new announcements and they've put some of their things into general administration or made some announcements on top of those. So I'm going to go through all of those. And show you those pieces. But before we go any further, I'm just going to do a quick overview of the Microsoft Power Platform. So what is the Microsoft Power Platform? Well, it's a software as a service for creating solutions to solve business requirements. So in effect, it's a business development platform. And you can do that by building custom applications using something called Power Apps, and that has 3 types. It has a Canvas app, it has a portal, and it has a model-driven app. Then we can automate workflows across applications using Power Automate, which is a workflow engine. And then we can analyze that data to provide insights from all different areas called Power BI. And then we can allow people to access that data and information in a number of manners, one of which is being able to create chatbots that we can use to answer questions and drive people to the right areas, and that is Power Virtual Agents. So we're able to meet requirements by creating new applications and integrating those applications with existing systems or building on top of those existing systems. So there are now over 400 data connections to all different areas, but we can also create our own connectors so we can talk to any of our own systems. So all of this exists inside this low code platform called the Power Platform. Also, recently, we've had a change from what used to be the underlying backend system, which was called the Common Data Service. Common Data Service, if you like, is a type of database, and it has many elements within it to do with security and being able to monitor what's going on. And it used to be called the Common Data Service. It has recently been changed to Dataverse. And also at Ignite, they announced that we were going to have a new logo. So that is the Dataverse logo you'll see there in green. So if at any point you now see that logo, you will know what that means. And any questions about Dataverse, or you're unsure what it is or what it provides, please ask and I'm happy to answer any of those. So let's start looking at what's been introduced. One of the things that I'm going to say as I go through this webinar today is normally people say, well, you're not going to see many slides because we've got lots of demos. Unfortunately, I have got some demos, but unfortunately there is a lot of slides because a lot of the stuff that Microsoft is talking about and bringing out for Power Platform, they're bringing out within the next 6 months, and some of it even within the next 24 months. So it's not available, some of it at the moment, to see. So where there is, I will talk about and show you what we can, but some things will be previews that Microsoft have provided because these things are coming. The first one to talk about is Power Automate Desktop, and Power Automate Desktop is with us now. And it was released in September 2020, so as part of Ignite. And what it does is it extends automation so that we can use the capabilities of Power Automate on premises and on our desktop. So what that means is that you can set up different, you can record different actions that are happening on your desktop or in your browser, and then we can go and run those so you can run automated tasks. There are 370 pre-built actions. So in this simple authoring interface, it allows you to add variables so that fields can be pre-populated and they can pass those values over to previous steps. So what that means is that you can quickly create these automated things that you may need. For example, you could automate Excel so it keeps them going through, or you could automate the creation of a Word template, taking values from somewhere, all within your work, all within your desktop. Now, the big thing that Microsoft have announced last week is that this is now going to be free. So it's free to all Windows 10 users. So you can now download the automated desktop and use it at no additional cost. Now, as always in Microsoft, there is a but there. You can go and create as many of these as you like on your desktop and use it at no additional cost. But if you wanted, for example, to run that on a regular basis from the cloud so that you were doing it for multiple users, if you had a legacy system that you wanted to do something on and then return that value into a flow and then use that somewhere else, a flow being a piece of workflow that exists inside Power Automate, you can do that. But that requires something called RPA, or robotic automation, and it sits inside the cloud and is a paid for subscription. With the release of Windows of Power Automate Desktop being free for users, Microsoft are currently offering what they call RPA automation at a reduced price for a while, so that people can get used to using it and decide whether it's what they want to do. So to give you a demo of Power Automate Desktop and what it can do, I'm going to now show a video that's been recorded by my colleague Marco, who's going to take you through building one of them and show how you can work it on the desktop and how you can call it from the cloud.
Hello everybody, I hope you're enjoying today's seminar on what's new in the Power Platform. My name is Marco, I'm a member of the Power Platform team here at Concatenate, and today I'm...
Ben, can you turn the volume up a little bit?
Yes, of course.
I'm going to take you through very briefly Power Automate Desktop, what it can do for you, and how you can integrate some of your on-premise workflows with the cloud, which is a premium feature that I'll come on to that later. So first of all, I'll go to the age-old cliche of, there's one I prepared earlier, just for brevity's sake. So in this particular workflow, I'm going to be registering customer feedback.
Ben, we're not getting much audio.
Yeah, I'm not hearing very much
Okay.
at all.
Let me see if I can turn that up. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to mute it. I'm going to mute it and I'm going to talk through it at the same time. So what we've got here is we're looking at the moment is a flow where he can call that. So here is Power Automate Desktop. What he's doing is he's set a number of recorded steps here where he can go through each of those loops and add those things into Excel. So when he runs it, he's going to get a column and he's going to write that into Excel using what was there previously. So he's going to be able to receive that item from an email, as you can see up the top here. Then he's going to launch Excel, and then from there he's going to add those items in, and then at the end he's going to close Excel. And he's got some variables at the side here. Now you can see how simple this is to use, and it is built in that way that it's a drag and drop interface. So he's setting here up the email so that he's able to go away and call it. And you can see that there are lots of different filters in here. The documentation on all of this is freely available, and you can start to build these now, as I say, using your existing Windows 10 license. Okay. In a moment, what will happen is when he runs it, he'll be able to show you the Excel. Once that's complete, you can take that and you can put it into a cloud-based flow that will call your flow on the desktop using something called a gateway, which is very simple to configure, and then it will go down and pull that information back up. As I say earlier, that is a paid-for feature. Okay, so let's move on. So the next thing I want to talk about is Microsoft Power Platform and Power BI within that Power Platform. So Power BI is the oldest element of the Microsoft Power Platform. It's been around for a number of years and it is evolved at a different pace to some of the other components. One of the things of that has been is very often when we do these what's new, what's happened in the last 6 months, you'll find that Power BI becomes a bit of a poor relation in the fact that you don't see very much, or what you do see is exceptionally complicated and very, very difficult to explain. This time around, though, Power BI has taken on a number of new things, and that is because it is associated with the next release of Power BI Premium. So this is Power BI Premium, and it has just gone into general preview. So it was in a closed preview. It's now in a open preview. So we can see the latest updates. So let's have a look on the side here. And this, what it's showing on the side on here, is the current things that you get with those premium features. So you get things like automated machine learning, which means it sits in the background, it uses key phrases and those type of things to understand what your data set is doing and call that data set. It also allows you to have a larger data set than you get with the normal Power BI. So instead of a gig, you can go up to a much larger with trillions and trillions of records, and it will keep all of that. One of the other things that it does is it has paginated reports, something that is not available inside of Power BI. It is only with Power BI Premium that you get those paginated reports, which has been an often request from people with Power BI Pro licenses, for example, to say, I would like to be able to use the paginated reports. Currently, you can't. One of the largest things about Power BI Premium is it has the ability to share all your reports within an organization. What that means is that you don't need a pro license in your organization if you have Power BI Premium to share that report and for it to be seen by people within it. They don't all have to have that individual license. The consequence of that is that this is not a per user service. It is in fact a subscription service in which your organization pays a set fee per month and then everyone is covered within that. So what are we seeing in the latest release? Well, we're going to see enhanced performance for larger data sets, but one of the biggest things is auto scale, which means that if your reports come under a heavy usage, it's going to automatically work this out and add more processing power so that you can run them better. And also when that goes down, it will go back down again to normal utilization. One of the things to note on that is it only allows you to do it once within the 24-hour period. So what I was mentioning there is about the fact that this is a subscription service. Well, in fact, at the last Ignite, again, last September, Microsoft announced that Power BI Premium is going to move to a per user license, allowing smaller and medium size organizations to be able to use some of the benefits of Power BI Premium. For example, being able to build bigger models, being able to have paginated reports, being able to have a refresh. All of these things are coming in. Now, as you can see, there are certain things, because it's a per user, that you won't get. And one of those is the unlimited distribution within your organization. So unfortunately, one of the big things, that ability to share, of course, because it's per user, you won't be able to have. So you get some of the features, but not all. One of the things that is to note in here is you do now get paginated reports. There has been a big push within the community to say we would like paginated reports in Power BI. It has been opened on what's called user voice, which is Microsoft's area for you to add suggestions of things you might like, including inside the Power Platform. And that's been voted up a number of times. But obviously now that we have our Power BI Premium per user license, I think the chances of paginated reports coming down into Power BI on Power BI Pro are nothing. I don't think it will happen. One of the things that this has happened now that this has gone into GA is that Microsoft have announced the price, something that they didn't do last September. So the price is £15.10 per user per month. So you can see per capacity, we're looking at about £4,000, £3,350, but now you can have this new Power BI Premium per user for £15.10. So that does mean that if you do want the paginated reports, the auto scaling, the ability for infused AI in there, your users can have that at £15.10. Also, Microsoft have announced that if you have a E5 license, which automatically gives you Power BI Premium for an extra $10, you will be able to upgrade that to be a Power BI Premium user. One thing to note on that at this moment in time is they've only announced that as $10. What it will be in UK sterling has yet to be announced, but that will probably be whatever the current rate is of transfer. But again, it'd be worth talking to your software vendor, your Microsoft software vendor, so you can find out how much that will be. But that is a model that is coming. Okay. The next thing that they have announced and actually delivered, they delivered this last December, put out a blog article, but made a fanfare about it as Ignite Next last week, is that Power BI is going to have direct query support to Dataverse. What is Dataverse? What does direct query support mean? Well, Dataverse is the database that sits at the back that powers Dynamics 365. Now, you can say, OK, well, that doesn't affect me because I'm not using Dynamics 365. But what it also does is the engine behind the Power Platform. So when you use the Dataverse, and it is a subscription that you do, you get all these tables out of the box that we're associated with CRM. And then you can build your own applications in there with the same security, the same controls, the same ability to create apps that you get with Dynamics 365. Also, what Microsoft announced last Ignite was the ability to use Dataverse inside of Teams, and that is called Dataverse for Teams. One way to think about it is Dataverse Lite. So if you have a Microsoft 365 license and people are using Teams, you may find they are actually already creating Microsoft for Teams environments with Dataverse. And that's something we will come on to talk about later when we talk about the new compliance and governance tools that are coming. So what does this direct query support give you? Well, the difference is it means that all the data is pulled from the server rather than being pulled down into the memory of the machine or the report. And also, it gives you a better relationship for discovery, real-time data support, and it has support for the underlying Dataverse security model, which is very, very good because it can go right down to field level security, and it will respect all of that. Also, the direct query support will support both Dataverse and Dataverse for Teams. Now it's also able to understand the complex data types that exist inside there. So it's going to be able to understand lookups, choices, and the currency, and it will flatten all of those so that you can use them. OK, so that's Power BI and Dataverse. The next area is virtual agents. Now, virtual agents have been around since September 2019, and they're the ability to go and create chatbots. They have an underlying AI that's learning all the time about what people are writing in. And then from those chatbots, it's able to then go and translate that into say, OK, well, I've learned that this is a new thing that somebody says hello in. I can now go and put that in, and it will learn and people can interact with it. It has a very, very simple drag and drop interface, which if you've ever used Power Automate and the flows within it, you would be able to understand because it runs in a very particular way, and it's very similar to that in the way in which it goes down through those different elements. It is available inside of Teams under your existing Microsoft 365 license. So Power Virtual Agents, you can go and run inside Teams today, and you can go and start calling Power Automates and start putting in Q&As so that that chatbot does what you need it to do. Also, virtual agents are available as a standalone thing so that you can put them into your website if you like. They can go into Slack, they can go into your Facebook page if you want them to, and they'll all go and talk and use the same thing. One of the things they have a concept of is topics. So the topics are just that. So when someone types in, I want to know about this, that would be a set topic, and you can go and then start saying, based on what these people have asked, I can go and start working out how I'd like you to respond and build the bot accordingly. So what Microsoft have announced is they're going to start using the AI that they've already got, and they're going to put it more into the interface so that we can start to make them better for the user. So one of the things that we're going to have is this topic overlay detection. And what that's going to say is that actually you've created 4 or 5 topics, but I'm noticing that as people are looking through, those topics are overlapping, they're switching from one to the other. You may need to refine those. This area is rolling out in March. It's not in my tenancy yet, but hopefully by the end of March it will be. So that's the first part there, the topic overlay. The next one, which I think will have a real benefit, is that topics are going to be suggested based on the transcripts. So your AI is going to learn, it's going to analyze the transcripts it's got and say, I noticed that this topic is not being provided and people are asking a lot of questions about it. So say you had a HR bot that you've written, that you've got in Teams, that's for all the staff to ask it general HR questions. And you find out that a lot of people are asking about unpaid leave, but you don't have a topic on that. This will be picked up, tell you that it thinks you ought to have a topic on it, and you can then say, okay, let's open that up, see how it interacts with other topics and start building it. One of the concepts of virtual agents is that it's meant to take it away from the developer, because you can create very complicated bots, so that you can respond quickly to things. So for example, if you do have a particular situation that comes up inside your organization that you need to respond to quickly, you'd be able to see that people are asking lots of questions over this area and quickly build a topic and add it to the bot within a matter of hours, and it's ready then to go. And if you, like say, if you have your Microsoft 365 license, ready to go within Teams. So that's virtual agents and AI. So the next thing is something that's going to go, and this is Microsoft's biggest announcement as far as they see for the Power Platform, and this is Powerfx. And this is going to go across all sections of the Power Platform. It's going to go across Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, and Dataverse, which is why it's highlighted down there. Current moment in time, they've not said anything about Power BI. And also, I've not said anything about what it is. So let's go and have a look. So Power BI is a low-code programming language that's going to sit across the Power Platform. So it does sound a bit like an oxymoron, and I do see that we've got a low-code, no-code platform that's pushed as a low-code, no-code platform, and now we're going to have a language. So what's going on? Well, basically, if you've ever used Canvas apps, and I'll show you a demo of this in a minute, we're going to be using that language that sits inside there. And if you know anything about it, it's very similar to Excel in the way that Excel exposes its logic in a low code way. You select them, things interact as you're looking, and you're able to change and see. So what Microsoft want to do is bring that familiarity with Microsoft Excel functions into low code development and workflow automation, so that people can start working on the content, one version of the truth in a similar area, and not have to worry about how things are working underneath to produce the result that they want that they would do via code. One of the other things to note about Powerfx is that the language will be open. So just like C#, it'll have an open source contribution by the wider community on GitHub, allowing it to be responsive to things that are happening in the general IT world or within business that need looking at that set time. So that will all go on there. So that will go into GitHub and they'll be able to open use it. Also, there are other authoring tools coming along for it. So you're going to be able to use Visual Studio Code. And if you understand a language called YAML, you'll be able to create your entire application in the background and then upload it. I know that's not something that everyone will be happy about or familiar with, but one of the things that it might be useful for example, is that if you create a color palette, you can easily introduce that color palette into every single app so that it all takes on the same look and feel. And when I say every single app, I mean this language is going to be across everything. So a model-driven app is an application that sits on top of Dataverse and is process-driven, so it shows your fields in forms and you can move it through a set type of process. That is going to be part of this language as well and used. One of the most exciting things for me is something you can see here in this rather blurry picture on the side there, is that Dataverse has a concept of calculated fields. not dissimilar to calculated fields in SharePoint, if anyone is familiar with those. And what you're going to be able to do is put your Dataverse, your Powerfx language into a calculated field to go to do what you want. So that means that we can not have to store all of that information inside Power Apps or a flow. We can rely on it to automatically do it. So let's have a look at this Powerfx. Okay, so I'm inside a Canvas app here, and actually Canvas apps is the first thing to use Powerfx. It's where it comes from. And you'll notice that here I have two boxes and I have the word hello, and over here I have text. So let's click on that text. And now I can go and change what the text is. I can change it here or down here. So I'm going to say, and what you'll see is that's instantly changed like Excel. Not going to compile anything, that's instantly changed. So once this starts going across all of my areas and I understand how to use different formulae, I can use them all over the place. So let's take another example. If I go into here and I'm running the application now and I'll put my first name in there and then I put my second name, I've got this. So nothing's changed. But let's go and use a function that's familiar maybe to you from Excel, which is called concatenate. So I can now type in the word concatenate and it appears like it would in Excel. And what I can do here is this allows me to concatenate certain string values or text together. So I've got my box there. So if I type in txt, this one here, and then I go and say what its text is, you can see now when I close the bracket here, it's updated in real time and I've got hello. I probably want to put it like that, and then I can do the second one. Probably want to put hello at the front as well. But what you can see is as I'm building, it's happening. So I don't have to worry about holding it all together in the code at the back end. It's happening as I do it. So it's got a declarative. I can make changes. I can see them. I work with all this interface. And over the next 24 months, so over the next year, Microsoft will be rolling this out across all of the different elements of the Power Platform. So when are they rolling out and what are they rolling out? Well, they're saying by the middle of this year, so June this year, those formula-based model-driven apps are going to get those customizations. So you will be able to start using the Powerfx language across model-driven apps. And also you're going to be able to have formula-based plugins that will come into Dataverse. So you'll be able to create things, build them in, and then you can start having functions and so on that exist within the Dataverse itself. Then over by the end of this year, we're going to have those lovely Dataverse calculated columns. We're going to have an AI builder so that we can do AI builder allows you to create drag and drop artificial intelligence. We're going to be able to talk to that via Powerfx and actually configure it via Powerfx. And also Power Virtual Agents are going to come in and be able to understand the same language. So it is a big move. It means that we only need to learn one thing once and it will be across all of these different things. So as you can see there, there's no mention of Power BI at the moment. Dax Queries, we could say Dax Queries is how you can query data within Power BI. It may be interesting to say, well, actually, doesn't that fit in there? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I think it's something we need to keep a big eye on going forward. But if you want to learn it, start getting a normal Canvas app down. You can start going through it and starting to learn it so that when it starts to move into Power Automate and those type of things, you'll be able to understand what's going on. Also, you will see there that Power Automate is not included by the end of this year. Microsoft is saying it will be included in 2022. So this is going to be a slow evolution, but it will get there. So learn it now and then you'll be future proofed going forward for understanding that language. Okay. One of the things that interests me a great deal is the Microsoft Power Platform and how to do compliance and governance within it. So one of the things that you'll see here is that they are adding more. that they'll be able to add more and more functionality in that is locks down the platform. There is a rich set of tools already available in there, but they're going to add more and more as we go. And there's a real investment into this security, compliance and governance so that we have an enterprise solution for delivering these business applications that's strong, secure, we know what's going on, we know who's doing what. So what are these announcements they've made? So the first one is that we're going to have tenant-wide analytics. If any of you have installed the Centre of Excellence, which is a solution package from Microsoft that you can put in and configure that allows you to see what's going on, who's doing what, where and when, how many shares a particular application has, you can build something very similar to this, and it does come with a big report. But Microsoft have announced that we're going to have a report for the whole tenant, so we don't need to use that part of it. I would still advocate using the Centre of Excellence because there is some brilliant tools in there. And I have done some previous sessions, which you can find on the Silver Sands video site about the Centre of Excellence. So this is going to give us those tenant-wide analytics only from the last 28 days, but it does mean we're going to be able to see who's doing what, where, what's heavily being used, how much is it being used. We can do that at the moment per environment, an environment being a container that you can store your Power Platform elements within, and you can have multiple different environments within your overall tenancy. So you can do it by that. But if you're trying to find a problem that's bringing something else down, or you notice that some data is going and leaking from somewhere, having this tenant-wide analytics is going to make a real difference to understanding that. And that's being rolled out in the next couple of months. The other thing is we're going to have a lot of changes to our data loss prevention policies. Currently, data loss prevention policies allow you to take all of the connectors that connect to all sorts of different data and block them so that they can't be used within a certain environment. You can also have something called business connectors and non-business connectors, which are like buckets, if you like, where you can put certain connectors so that they can talk to each other, but not any in the blocked and not any in the business. For example, if you were using non-business and if you were using business, they would be able to talk to each other, but nothing in non-business or blocked. Now, at the moment, it's quite a blunt tool. So if you say don't want to use Twitter, you just block it completely. But Twitter is used by a lot of people to look at the sentiment of what's going on and what people are saying about your organization. So you may want to be able to use some actions of it, but certainly block some others. And that's where this new granular connector action controls comes in. So as you can see from the screenshot, you're going to be able to choose the actions associated with a connector, in this case Twitter, that will be able to be used within that bucket, the non-business or the business. So we can say here for the marketing, we are interested in knowing what people had, what they're saying, but what we don't want to allow people to do is to use this to post a tweet or retweet a tweet so they don't start spilling out our information into Twitter. So we're going to have that granular control to be able to add it straight in and start working with it, which means we may feel happier about putting Twitter into one of our buckets. Also, something to consider is that things change all the time inside the platform, so there may be some more actions that are added into Twitter, and you're going to be able to decide whether you want them to be on the moment those new actions are added or off. So you're going to be able to tag and toggle at the bottom there to ensure that you know what's happening when new ones come in. So for certain connectors like SharePoint, for example, you may say to yourself, actually, I don't mind about new actions because it's within inside my wall. I'm very pleased with the way and happy with the way it's used. But for Twitter, you certainly might want to turn those off. So that is coming. The other thing that's now coming as well is endpoint filtering. So for example, if you have a SQL database that you're calling and you need it within an application, that is fine. But what you can now be going to be able to do is say, actually, the user cannot talk to this endpoint, this SQL server. So you can put those endpoints in to say for SQL server, you're not allowed to go and talk to that database. So it allows you to use the SQL server to connect to the MySQL connector or an online resource and say, actually, in certain circumstances, you cannot talk to this database. You cannot talk to this website. Another thing that's coming, which is going to be a great relief for certainly for me and for some others, is that custom connectors being a connector that you can configure yourself to talk to your own data and then bring it into the wider Power Platform. They're coming into data loss prevention policies within the UI interface. So at the current moment in time, you have to use PowerShell to be able to add them into the DLP in the first instance, say where they sit, and it's quite a complicated piece of PowerShell because you have to do all sorts of things with GUIDs and so on. That's going to change. Custom connectors are going to be listed inside of your these screens for setting up data loss prevention policies, and you'll be able to add them and work with them. The other thing you're going to be able to do is isolate your tenancy. So you may find that you can connect. Some people can connect to external tenants where they have their account allows them to do so. At current moment in time, tenant isolation is something that is available, but again, you have to ask Microsoft to set it up for you. That's now coming into the admin center, so you're going to be able to set up that tenant isolation yourself. Next thing that's coming, and this is coming later in the year, so a bit woolly about when, but Microsoft are going to have labels. So we've got labels inside Microsoft 365, but we're going to be able to have configuration labels coming in, so we're going to be able to set our data. Now, this is a big thing, really, when it comes to Microsoft Dataverse for Teams. Because Dataverse sits inside Teams and users are able to go and add it and they can start working, there is a concern, and a quite right concern, about what happens to that data because it may be sitting outside of my other policies. How is it protected? What is going on? These changes are going to allow us to get some control over that, so we'll be able to see what's happening. Because one of the things that Microsoft have also announced is that the Dataverse for Teams is going to be extended in the number that you'll be able to create. So you're going to be able to create hundreds more than you currently did, which if you're not careful, your users will be able to run amok. All of these things that exist within the compliance area will apply to Microsoft Teams, Dataverse for Teams. So when anyone creates a Dataverse for Teams, it will appear as an environment, and you'll be able to go and monitor that environment. You'll be able to go and add it to your DLP so that it will fail if you use that DLP, if they try and do something against that DLP. So all of that control is coming in. When I say coming in, some of it is there already. Any DLP that you currently have will affect those environments that you tell it to when you scope it, but the more granular is going to affect Teams as well. Okay, so that was the big thing that Microsoft announced last time, was the Power Platform in Teams. And I've spoken a lot about it. I know it was something that was introduced last Ignite, but it's so big in the way it can impact your organization and how it impacts your compliance and governance that it's probably a good idea for us to go and have a look at it so that you can see what's going on. So inside of here is my team. And now what I can go and do is I can go and simply add Power Apps here, and Power Apps will then appear on the side here for me to be able to use. Now, what does it do? Well, it sits inside Teams, so it creates a version of Dataverse that sits inside that team. So what I can go and do, if we go and look in Build here, I'll be able to see all the elements. So let's look at my new starter here. And what we can see straight away is we have all these tables. So this sign here means it's an application. These signs here mean they're a table. If I go and click on that, I can see all the fields and everything that exists inside my table, but most importantly, I can see all the relationships. And this is where Dataverse for Teams, which you get under your Microsoft 365 tenancy, makes the difference to SharePoint. You can create relationships. You can hold 2 gigs worth of data. So that's about 1 million records. So you're going to be able to create those relationships between those records, have it all sat in there, and you don't have to control it inside of SharePoint, worry about the limits with SharePoint. It all sits within there. The big plus of Microsoft Dataverse for Teams is it runs in Teams. So it now has special things in it that make any of the applications that you create responsive, so that they will fit on different screens. So you can design them to work in Teams mobile, you can design them to work in Teams on your tablet or even on your desktop. One of the biggest drawbacks of Microsoft Dataverse for Teams is it only runs in Teams. What you can't do is provide it as an app that appears inside the Powerfx application on someone's phone, and also currently you can't do offline, although that is coming. The other thing that is coming is the ability to create model-driven apps into this area, and we will see that drive for Powerfx appearing within Teams quite quickly. One of the other things it has is a granularity of permissions, so I can go and click on here for a table and I can start saying who can look at it. One of the things you'll notice as well on the side here is that I have guest access. By default, they can create new records and read their own records. They can update their own records, but they don't have access to look at all the other different things. And you can change that. But what that does mean is you can invite guests in and they can use your Power App inside of Teams without having to buy additional licenses as you do to share the other types of apps, or they have to have a license to be able to see those Power Apps. So if I quickly move into a team here, and we'll go and have a look at the HR area, and we'll be interested in employee. So I'll go into my HR area, and I've got my new starter app here. And this is it running inside of Teams called Dataverse. Now, I have a separate app that's for a new starter where they can put down what they've done in that day against their new starter elements. So if they say have check laptop is working, they're able to go in and they can say, yes, I've checked the laptop is working, and they can set that to be done. This application we're looking at here is for my mentors who are going to set those different processes up. So what I can do is I could secure my table for the mentors just to certain users so that they get access to this for it to work, but new starters wouldn't. So what I can do is I can go and click onto here and I can go and start putting in all the different users that there are, and they will get added because they exist inside a table known of all your users. And I can go and start saying I want to create a new record, put in their task, put in their created by, and save it. I can also then go and have another area that allows me to review what people have done. So you can begin to see that power of Dataverse for Teams that sits inside of here. And again, coming back to the compliance and governance, this is going into that area. It is covered by all the controls that are currently in there, all the analytics that are currently in there, and all the analytics that are coming. So rather than turning it all off so that no one can use it, it would be a good idea to make sure your data loss prevention policies are up to date, your teams are covered, and you have an idea of who doing what where. And that will get easier, but I would encourage you to start looking at the Centre of Excellence. Currently, the Centre of Excellence requires a full Dataverse license. That is changing. Microsoft are currently producing some of the Centre of Excellence elements so that they run for Teams and that will be standalone. There's no word on when that will be out, but it is currently in process. And so with that, that was a very, very quick overview of everything that's happening. There's a lot going on, as you can see. Big takeaways for me are particularly the compliance governance and Powerfx as it rolls out and will make a difference to what we can create and when. I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that we have some Silver Sands accelerators for both Microsoft 365 and Power Platform, and this is about creating a proof of concept for a business application that you may have that we might be able to help you to build within 5 days so that you can start looking and working out how you might want to use the Power Platform to suit your given business needs. And with that, I will pass back over to Colin.
Thank you, Ben. That was very interesting, very informative. There's an awful lot of stuff there to take in, so hopefully everybody was able to keep up. It's quite useful of the recording to go back over it. Just to highlight the accelerator there that Ben mentioned, you know, those are really useful. All our accelerators are meant, they're fixed price engagements, and they're meant to try and help you guys get a basic scenario up and running as quickly as possible and really see where it fits in with your own organization and how it can add benefit in your world. So I encourage you to sort of look at that in more detail. So just moving on, just looking at any questions. Actually, before I mention that, I've just added into the chat the feedback survey. So please don't forget to fill that in at some point before you leave the session. That'd be very, very much appreciated. Just looking at questions, would anyone like to sort of ask any questions? Immediately just unmute yourself if there's none in the chat. So feel free to just unmute and ask Ben directly if there's anything that you would like to ask.
Hello, I can start.
Hi, Oleg.
Oleg here from UK Power Networks.
Hello.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for a very interactive session. My question is around the services that SilverSense may provide to its partners. So is that a development, environment setup, what kind of, or just a consultation perhaps? What kind of services do you provide normally? Could you expand a little bit on that?
Shall I answer that, start with Colin and then hand over to you? Okay, so as all of these sort of answers, I'm going to say everything, but what we will do on that is, so for example, if we took compliance and governance, we can do an audit, or we can set up the Centre of Excellence for you. We can come in and look at what's going on and make sure that it's secure. That's one thing that we can do. We can also help you with your team of people who are taking those elements on, so we can come and provide guidance, show you what you can build, how you might be able to build something, how you think about asking the right questions and building that application out from there. We can help you across all of the platforms, so we have specialists in each area. So we can talk about Power BI, up to the fact that we can actually come in and take the requirements that you need, go and produce proposals and produce the entire application for you inside of an application lifecycle management, where we feed back in a bit like a traditional development project, but use the Power Platform to be able to create quick and useful solutions, and also most importantly show you all those elements, and if they don't fit to your requirement, tell you they don't fit your requirement, because sometimes these things are amazing and they're growing all the time, but there are points at which it won't do what you want to do, and it's as important to know that as it is to know when it can be used.
Yeah, and also, like, just to sort of add to what Ben said, it's amazing how often an organization gets us to come in and even just do a basic review of how their Power Platform is set up, and it quite often uncovers quite a lot of areas that the organization weren't even aware of. So very well worthwhile thing to do. So I'd reiterate that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Anyone else got any questions? If there's nothing else comes to mind, feel free to just message Ben or I directly in the chat. In this meeting, we'll get back to you directly afterwards. But I think if that's all the questions, just to say thanks again, Ben, for your input. I'll be sending out the slides and the recording a little later on this afternoon. But for now, I hope everyone found that very useful. We look forward to seeing you again on Thursday. I've put a link into the SharePoint, what's new in SharePoint and OneDrive webinar for Thursday in the chat. So if you're not already registered and this is of interest, please feel free to click on that and register. Otherwise, remember to do your feedback survey, and then thank you for attending.